The Tolkien Road, Episode 79, of the Rings of Power and the Third Age, Part 2. Alright, go ahead. The Tolkien Road, 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 the Tolk Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, a long walk through the works and philosophy of J.R.R. Tolkien. On this episode, we finish discussing of the Rings of Power and the Third Age, the last section of the Silmarillion. This discussion will continue where we left off last time with the beginning of the Third Age, and continue right on through to a brief overview of Frodo's journey. Before we get started, why not hop on over to iTunes and leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback? It's a great way to show your support for the show and takes less than a minute. Thanks for listening, and enjoy. Hello everyone, welcome to the Tolkien Road, episode 79 of the Rings of Power and the Third Age, part 2. Greta.
Hey.
Yeah, hey, what's up?
What's going on? Not a whole lot. What's up with you?
About the same here.
Yeah?
About the same here.
Right.
Yeah, we're just ready to do part 2.
That's what I was going to say. I'm just ready to get this thing done.
Yeah.
You know?
This is officially the last section, of the Silmarillion. I mean, unless in the far future, we do an episode on the indexes or something like that.
Oh, God help me.
This should be the last, just not the last time I'll ever talk about the Silmarillion, but the last episode that just focuses on one particular part of the Silmarillion. I think we pretty much got it covered after this one.
I would like to think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've only spent 34, 35 episodes on it or something like that.
It feels like twice that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully our listeners don't feel that way, but I kind of feel that way.
Why? Didn't you like the Silmarillion?
I did, but I like Tolkien's other stuff so much more.
Well,
I feel like it's just, more fun reading.
Yeah, but, think about, the highlights of the Silmarillion.
Mm-hmm. They're pretty high.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
It's as someone who's not as well studied in Tolkien, it's just heavy. It's kind of like a slog. Whereas I feel like I can curl up with the Fellowship of the Ring or the Two Towers or Return of the King or whatever and be like, just know I'm going to enjoy and I won't have to work too hard.
Yeah.
Whereas the Silmarillion, it was work. It was mental.
Okay. Whatever.
Mental work. And I only got so much of that to go around,
Yeah. Well, thanks for being a downer for all of us.
Tom, that was not my intent. I was just saying that it's been a bit of a marathon.
I hear you. No doubt the Silmarillion is a challenging work. I hope that you have gained a significant appreciation for it. And I think you just have to keep in mind, the high points. There is the reality that, it's almost like it'd be an interesting discussion one time to have, to figure out how you might have done the Silmarillion differently, still kept all of the content, but really sort of done a form of the story that was a little more accessible.
Yes.
And maybe put a lot of the stuff that wasn't very action-packed in the appendices or something like that. Kind of like you did with, the Lord of the Rings.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway.
I'm happy I did it, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I feel proud when I can tell people I've read the Silmarillion.
Sure you are.
Not a lot of people can say that honestly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we all believe you.
But, I'm a little tired. And I'm ready to get to something a little more, Yeah. You know what I'm trying to say.
Well, maybe you shouldn't be staying up so late at night, watching football games and
whatever.
Watching home improvement shows or whatever it is you watch. Maybe then you wouldn't be so tired trying to blame it on the Silmarillion. All right. We have a couple of listener notes I wanted to make sure we give recognition to. The first is from Greg, a.k.a. Greg UK, I believe. He's commented before. Remember, he was
as in United Kingdom or UK as in University of Kentucky?
United Kingdom.
Okay.
I'm almost certain.
Okay.
So Greg has commented before, and I think last time he commented that he'd kind of binge listened to a bunch of our episodes.
Oh, right.
And his work was starting to suffer because of it, which is
Nearly
awesome.
Fired.
That was when we knew we'd arrived.
Yes.
That was such a proud moment for us.
Yes.
And
people are willing to risk their livelihood.
He sent another note, and he said, "Good morning, Carswells. It's been a while since I sent my last message to you. I had previously binge listened to the podcast and kind of lost touch with the real world. Always a good thing. However, I have since had a promotion, getting closer to that corporate sponsorship deal you're after.
That's awesome.
And all sorts of other things going on, so haven't been able to keep up to date until now. I'm currently listening to the latest episode and remain impressed with the podcast. Not that my seal of approval is some kind of benchmark, but I think it's good for you to know that you're making a quality podcast. I even recommended this to a few friends, and they're quickly catching up." Sweet.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He goes on to say, "I wanted to suggest lyrics for the haiku theme, and while I admit that I'm not musically gifted in any sense, this is honestly what comes into my head when I hear the tune. It's literally counting in tune. Exciting stuff." And I've asked him to record himself and send this to us because he kind of spelled it out, but I don't know. I've been trying to think about it and figure out how it all works.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know where it starts. That's the thing. I don't know where it starts with the song.
Where the lyrics begin.
So the lyrics are literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables for haiku. So
that's pretty great.
I like that.
I like that a lot. Thanks, Greg.
I want to hear it how it's in his head now. Because I've at least tell us where we're supposed to start, because I think we can probably figure it out.
Where we start counting. Yeah. Like on what beat?
On what beat? Yeah. Is it like when the high part comes in, like or is it with the bass, like doom doom?
Have you tried it yourself?
Or is it just at the very beginning? Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
We could
12,
try it
13,
today.
14. Maybe we will.
So what do you think? Have you tried it yourself?
I think maybe it's just supposed to be right when it starts.
That's what makes sense to me.
Yeah, because with the beat.
Yeah, with the beat.
Yeah. All right, well, let me finish his note.
Oh, okay.
One final thing, casting for Fellowship. I love the cast as they are, but would love to see Samuel L. Jackson as Gandalf. Mace Windu as an Istari would be epic. Haha.
Who's Mace Windu? I know the name, but I can't.
Josh is going to cry now.
Hey, I have a reputation to uphold here. Come on.
Mace Windu is one of the Jedi Masters from the prequels, from episodes 1 through 3.
So is Mace Windu is that his real name or his name in the movie?
That's his name in the movie. No, Samuel. You know who Samuel L. Jackson is?
Well, yeah, I know who Samuel L. Jackson is.
Yeah.
Does he play Mace Windu?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now it's all making sense to me. That's interesting. I never would have thought of Samuel L. Jackson as an Astari, but
yeah,
I can see that might work.
Well, hey, yeah, it's I joked back to Greg and kind of said, it would be it'd be funny to see kind of like Samuel L. Jackson's take on it, more like the his character from Pulp Fiction, who I can't remember the name of his character from Pulp Fiction, but because he's like the
I've never seen Pulp Fiction.
He and John Travolta. You never seen Pulp Fiction?
No, we've been over this before. I told you I've never seen it.
Okay.
We have a movie night. I've been wanting to see it, but I've never seen it. I know. I've seen like bits and pieces, so I know a little bit.
Yeah.
But John Travolta is the only one I really know that's in there.
Bruce Willis is in it.
Oh, is Bruce Willis in it too?
Uma Thurman.
Uma Thurman. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch of famous people.
Yeah, I haven't seen the whole thing though. So.
Well, anyway, it'll make more sense to you when I say that was like my little joke back to him. But yeah. Anyway, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for the note, Greg.
Right on.
Packed.
Absolutely. Thank you, Greg.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you.
It's great to hear from you, and let us know about that corporate sponsorship.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Except I had water in my mouth, so I'm glad you said it.
Well, I'm glad I said it too, and not you, because if you had tried to say it with water in your mouth, you would have spilled water all over the place.
Yeah, and then the podcast would have been drowned.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then we also had a note from a newer listener named Aaron Thiessen. It's funny. I feel like I've seen his name somewhere else, and maybe he's commented before and not listened to the podcast. I don't know, but here's what Aaron had to say. Greetings. I'm a new listener. Be prepared for a long comment. I actually just read The Hobbit for the first time early last year, having seen neither of the film trilogies, and that was my first exposure to Tolkien. I thought it was a nice story and didn't think too much about it. Then last fall, I picked up The Lord of the Rings and read all 3 within about 4 months, and I absolutely loved it. It very quickly became my favorite story of all time. After that, I didn't know there was anything else by Tolkien. Then I found out about the Silmarillion by looking it up online, and from the descriptions of it, I wasn't sure if I wanted to read it. But then I found a copy secondhand and decided I might as well give it a go. So what I did to read it was listen to the audiobook by Martin Shaw while following along in the book. That really helped with the pronunciation of all the names. Mm-hmm. So after 6 months of reading and many stops to Tolkien Gateway, I finally made it through. After that, I loved Tolkien more than ever. Then later I was searching for a Tolkien podcast. You guys were like the third one. So I tried a few of them out, but yours was the only one that really captured my interest. I love hearing people just ramble on like they were having an ordinary conversation. For the past 2 weeks now, I've been catching up on all your podcast episodes, and I have now listened to every single episode. I really love the podcast and hope to keep listening for a long time as you guys go down the Tolkien road. Oh, also, I would like to try my hand at some haiku when you guys start up with Lord of the Rings again. I would just like to know what is the best way for me to submit it. Would you prefer email, comment, or tweet? I told him, probably the best way to do it is just comment on the previous episode.
Okay.
But I will do my best to get it no matter how you send it in.
You've lost so many at this point, though. He probably just wants to...
I have not actually lost a single one. I've missed a few.
Misplaced, I guess.
Misplaced, and then I got... Yeah. But I found them all. If there's one I haven't, please let me know. But I'm pretty sure I found them all, and they're on some episode. But a couple of things I wanted to say about his comment. We did a little calculation and realized that, basically, if you binge listen to all of the episodes from start to finish in the last 2 weeks, that means you spent 20% of your life listening to the Tolkien Road in the last 2 weeks, which is awesome.
That is so cool.
Again,
I love it.
Love to hear that.
Yes.
And then also just, thank you for, the kind words about our podcast.
Absolutely.
I know there's some other Tolkien podcasts out there, and it's really cool to hear that we're the one that you connected with,
mm-hmm.
And I like how you put it about how we kind of ramble on. That is the goal. I mean, I didn't when we started this, we didn't want to be super formal and too sort of point by point. I didn't want to be reading from a script.
Right.
Wanted to be pretty much unscripted,
mm-hmm.
and just have kind of a
it's more natural.
I just want it to be a little more conversational.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like listening to.
Me too.
Because it feels like you're part of the conversation when that happens.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree.
So it's it's awesome to hear that, and it's great to hear that you've just kind of discovered and fallen in love with.
Yeah, that's really encouraging.
Tolkien's works.
Mm-hmm. So. I'd love to know there's people like Aaron out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really, really great.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really cool. And so thanks for the comment, Aaron, and others of those of you who are out there, we'd love to hear from you as well. People who have commented before, we'd love to hear from you and just mm-hmm. how you're doing and what you've been reading from Tolkien lately and that sort of stuff.
Yes.
And I'll say this too, and I don't know, we appeared to get a lot of traffic from Sweden for some reason in the last couple of weeks. So, and I don't know if that was some kind of anomaly, if it was robots or if it was actually Swedish listeners. So, all I was able to figure out was that a bunch of traffic for the podcast was coming from Sweden. And that's awesome. So if we have some Swedish listeners out there who would like to let us know how you found us, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yes,
And just, stop in and say hey.
Yep.
It's cool to know that there's people in all parts of the world who are listening.
It really is.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
Yeah. All right. Any other? I want to say one more thing. Email list. It's out there. Go sign up for it. It's a great way to get some special deals. We got some more cool stuff coming in the next few months. Yeah. So it's a good thing to be on the email list. You find out about some cool stuff that way. So. Yeah,
and you don't flood the inboxes.
No, I don't send you an email every day.
Yeah.
Or really even every week usually. Although I'm gonna try to get a little more frequent. Not maybe once a week. Feels good to me.
Sounds
kind of give people an update.
Mm-hmm.
But
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep the communication coming, guys.
Yeah, love hearing from everybody. All right. So the Third Age. So we left off last time, and we got through. So the Rings of Power in the Third Age is like, it's the rest of the. So Akalabath is the story of Numenor in the Second Age. Mm-hmm. The Rings of Power in the Third Age is actually the story of it's kind of the rest of the story of the Second Age,
right?
And then the whole story of the Third Age. It's a very large overview, and so last week we talked about the heart of the story is really what happens to the remnant of the Númenóreans when they come to Middle Earth after the destruction of Númenor,
right?
And what do they do when they arrive? And we learned that they establish two kingdoms. They establish Arnor in the north and Gondor in the south.
Right.
In Gondor they established 3 cities, and Gondor is kind of like the bulwark between, or the buffer between Mordor and the rest of Middle Earth.
Yes.
And then we learned that that Sauron created the rings in order to control the different races, the dwarves, men, and elves. The elves were most successful in resisting him, and then the men were least successful. Then the men were least successful, and that's where the Ring-Wraiths came from. Mm-hmm. And then you have the last alliance of men and elves. And the last alliance of men and elves results in the downfall of Sauron.
Right.
And that's when the Second Age ends. So it's kind of interesting to note, Sauron kind of sort of died not once but twice in the Second Age.
Yeah, he's like a cat with 9 lives.
He is. Yeah, he's kind of cat-like. Yeah. Hadn't thought about that.
He's giving cats bad names. Don't tell our daughter I said that.
Right. Yeah. Our daughter loves cats.
She's obsessed with cats.
So Sauron dies. The Second Age ends, and the Third Age begins. And so we're picking up with where we left off, which was the end of the Second Age and the beginning of the Third Age.
Beginning of the Third.
Right. The first big thing that happens in the Third Age is the Fall of Isildur. Right now, it's if you just watch the movies, you get this picture of Isildur that he is
a loser.
Yeah. You're like, come on, Isildur, really? You didn't? Why you could have just thrown the ring into Mount Doom and saved us all a lot of trouble?
I was surprised when we read the first part last week to hear that he was the one that went and saved that fruit from the white tree. I was like, oh, I thought he was just
Yeah, you actually
good for nothing.
When you look at the whole picture of his life and the things that he did, he's actually kind of a heroic dude. Mm-hmm. Like Isildur, he saves the fruit from the white tree before Sauron can completely destroy it. Right when they're still in Númenor.
Yep.
Basically goes on a covert op all by himself. Mm-hmm. He is one of the faithful, right? He's the son of Elendil, who is like the king of the faithful, or the leader of the faithful. And he's there at the last alliance of men and elves. He's fighting in that great battle, and he's the one that actually kills Sauron, right? He's the one that destroys Sauron in that battle. So, Isildur gets kind of a bad reputation because we know of his fall, but I wanted to give that little bit just to say that Isildur is not all bad. Isildur, in fact, was a pretty heroic guy, but this maybe what happens maybe just shows the power of the ring, right? Yeah. The way the ring can get inside, can get inside of men. So, going to page 295, we've got this little bit. If you want to start that first full paragraph, where it says the ruling ring passed out.
Okay. The ruling ring passed out of the knowledge even of the wise in that age, yet it was not unmade. For Isildur would not surrender it to Elrond and Círdan, who stood by. They counseled him to cast it into the fire of Ordruin, nigh at hand, in which it had been forged, so that it should perish, and the power of Sauron be forever diminished, and he should remain only as a shadow of malice in the wilderness. But Isildur refused this counsel, saying, "This I will have as a weregild for my father's death, and my brother's. Was it not I that dealt the enemy his death blow?" And the ring that he held seemed to him exceedingly fair to look on, and he would not suffer it to be destroyed. Taking it therefore, he returned at first to Minas Anor, and there planted the white tree in memory of his brother Anarion. But soon he departed, and after he had given counsel to Menandil, his brother's son, and had committed him to the realm of the south, he bore away the ring to be an heirloom of his house, and marched north from Gondor by the way that Elendil had come. And he forsook the south kingdom, for he purposed to take up his father's realm in Erador, far from the shadow of the Black Land.
Yeah. So Isildur decides that even though he knows the trouble that the ring brings, that he's going to keep it as Weregild.
Right? He feels like he's earned it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's
and
like, I killed its owner, and I
but
need something to remember him by.
But we can already see from that the operation of the ring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here it is.
Pride and
it's already kind of speaking to him and forming that possessiveness
in
him, right?
Right.
This is, I will have this. It even sounds like he has a good justification, right? His father and his brother both perished at the hand of Sauron, and so he's going to keep this as a, as something like a recompense, right? As a weregild. It's interesting. I don't even know what I should have looked at that word. I wonder what weregild.
Weregild. Is that like a trophy, maybe?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man payment. In ancient Germanic law, the amount of compensation paid by a person committing an offense to the injured party or in case of death to his family. So man payment. That's what that actually means.
Man payment.
Mm-hmm.
So like a tribute then?
No, it says it's a compensation, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Almost like what's it called? Like when you're convicted of a crime, you have to pay a certain amount of money.
Like a fine or
not a fine, but it has another name, right? Like damages.
Damages.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like just compensation, recompense.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just trying to recompensate. So, so he claims he wants to hold on to it because of the death of
to help compensate for his dad and brother's death.
Yeah, for his father and his brother's death. But Isildur was overwhelmed by a host of orcs that lay in wait in the Misty Mountains, and they descended upon him at unawares in his camp between the Greenwood and the Great River, nigh to Loeg Ningloron, the Gladden Fields, for he was heedless and set no guard, deeming that all his foes were overthrown. There well nigh all his people were slain, and among them were his 3 elder sons, Elindir, Aratan, and Kirion. But his wife and his youngest son, Valandil, he had left in Imladris when he went to the war. Imladris, by the way, is Rivendell.
Oh, okay.
Isildur himself escaped by means of the ring, for when he wore it, he was invisible to all eyes. But the orcs hunted him by scent and slot, until he came to the river and plunged in. There the ring betrayed him and avenged its maker, for it slipped from his finger as he swam, and it was lost in the water. Then the orcs saw him as he labored in the stream, and they shot him with many arrows, and that was his end. Only 3 of his people came ever back over the mountains after long wandering. And of those, one was Otar, his esquire, to whose keeping he had given the shards of the sword of Elendil. So the ring, of course, is Isildur's undoing. He tries to escape with it. He gets attacked by orcs, and who knows? They may have just been drawn to the ring. It could be that they were actually drawn to the ring.
Yeah.
But the ring betrayed him. It's interesting to say that it betrayed him and avenged its maker, for it slipped from his finger as he swam, and it was lost in the water. And so he's seen, and he's killed.
Yeah.
So Isildur is destroyed by his need to possess the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the end of Isildur, but not of his line, because his youngest son survives.
Right.
And so he had been going to assume the throne of Arnor in the north, whereas he had left his brother's son in charge of the throne of Gondor in the south.
Okay.
So we still have rightful heirs on each of the thrones in Arnor and Gondor.
Right.
Okay. It's Isildur's line in the north, and what's his brother's name? I forget.
Arion or Anarion.
Anarion's son in the south.
In Gondor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the end of Isildur. Now, Valandil, his youngest son, takes up his abode in Anumanas, right, which is that city in the north that's the capital of Arnor. Okay. Remember that one that's not too far from the Shire that we looked at on the map last week?
Yep.
So he takes up that city, or the throne in that city. But it doesn't take long until their folk are diminished, it says. It says, of the Númenóreans and of the men of Eriador, there remained now too few people to build the land, too few to people the land or to maintain all the places that Elendil had built. In Dagorlad and in Mordor and upon the gladdened fields many had fallen. And it came to pass after the days of Aurendor, the seventh king that followed Valandil, that the men of Westerness, the Dunedain of the north, became divided into petty realms and lordships, and their foes devoured them one by one. Ever they dwindled with the years until their glory passed, leaving only green mounds in the grass. At length naught was left of them but a strange people wandering secretly in the wild. And other men knew not their homes nor the purpose of their journeys, and save in Imladris and the house of Elrond their ancestry was forgotten. Yet the shards of the sword were cherished during many lives of men by the heirs of Isildur, and their line, from father to son, remained unbroken. So this gives us a picture of who Aragorn is, right?
Yes.
Because
it's his heritage.
We know that he's kind of, he's grown up in that region, right? He's not he's not really known in Gondor, right? He is of the descent of the line of Arnor, of the kingdom of Arnor. But because Elendil was the father of both, right, Arnor and Gondor, then if there's no line for Anarion's son, line, there's no heir in Anarion's line, then it would automatically go over to
Gondor,
to Isildur's line, right?
I say yes.
So, but we see this picture that the ranks of Númenóreans were so decimated, right? They were so just brought low, and so many were killed in the great battle against Sauron that they're just not able to really keep the kingdom of its size. So it descends into just all these little groups fighting, and they eventually just start fighting amongst each other about petty things. Right.
Yeah.
So that's the decline of Arnor. Arnor doesn't continue on for as kind of the great kingdom that Gondor does for very long. Only a few generations before it really declines, and it just becomes kind of this forgotten nation of wandering people, which is why Aragorn essentially grows up as a ranger in the wild.
These are the Dunedain that we've talked about? Are those?
Yeah,
those are the people from Arnor.
Yeah, but remember, Dunedain just means elf-friend, right? It's the name they were given in the early days of Númenor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's Dunedain from Gondor as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all Dunedain, right? Because they're all descended from Númenor.
That's why it specifies Dunedain of the north, because that's where Arnor was.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
But Gondor lasts a little longer. I guess not as many people, or maybe it wasn't as large a kingdom. It didn't have as many cities to people or to take. But even there, it's not long before they start to decline somewhat themselves. Remember, there were three key kingdoms, or three key cities when it came to Gondor, right? There was Minas Anor, which is the Tower of the Sun.
Right.
Osgiliath, which is the city that's right on the Anduin River, and then you have Minas Ithil, which was the Tower of the Moon, which was jutted right up against the mountains of Shadow, which was the border with Mordor.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long until the Ring-Wraiths return. The Ulari, whom Sauron called the Nazgul, the 9 Ring-Wraiths that had long remained, but returned now to prepare the way of their master, that had long remained hidden, but returned now to prepare the way of their master, for he had begun to grow again. Do you want to read that next paragraph? And in the days of Arno.
And in the days of Arno, they made their first stroke, and they came by night out of Mordor over the passes of the mountains of Shadow, and took Minas Ithil for their abode. And they made it a place of such dread that none dared to look upon it. Thereafter it was called Minas Morgul, the Tower of Sorcery. And Minas Morgul was ever at war with Minas Anor in the west. Then Osgiliath, which in the waning of the people had long been deserted, became a place of ruins and a city of ghosts. But Minas Anor endured, and it was named anew Minas Tirith, the Tower of Guard. And there the kings caused to be built in the citadel a white tower, very tall and fair, and its eye was upon many lands. Proud still and strong was that city, and in it the white tree still flowered for a while before the house of the kings. And there the remnant of the Númenóreans still defended the passage of the river against the terrors of Minas Morgul, and against all the enemies of the west, orcs and monsters and evil men. And thus the lands behind them, west of Anduin, were protected from war and destruction.
Yeah. So Gondor is this city that holds Mordor at bay. There's this realm that holds Mordor at bay, and unfortunately, Minas Ithil falls, becomes Minas Morgul, the Tower of Sorcery. Osgiliath falls, becomes sort of a ghost city. and then you just Minas Anor is transformed into Minas Tirith, the Tower of Guard, and that's really their city. So they're able to at least hold together as something of a kingdom in Gondor because there's not as many places that they have to hang on to, and it's a smaller realm. It is a smaller realm than what was in Arnor.
Right.
And even there, the last king of Gondor eventually, eventually there is a last king, right? There is a king beyond whom the kingdom doesn't continue, or the kingdom continues, but the line of Anarion doesn't continue. So we learn about that as well. We also have a little bit of info about the Rohirrim here, who are the people of Rohan, right?
Okay.
And
that's where Boromir comes from. Is that right?
No. Boromir is of Gondor.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who's from Rohan then?
Well, we'll get to no one from Rohan has been in Lord of the Rings where we've gotten to so far.
Okay.
We'll get they're coming up soon.
Okay.
So that's the status. That's kind of what happens to the Númenóreans after the destruction of Sauron. Several generations go by, and Arnor and Gondor just sort of decline. Arnor declines so much that it really ceases to exist. Gondor declines into not so much a great civilization as a great kingdom, but just sort of a tower, just sort of a military sort of kingdom, right? That's there to keep
to protect
really the rest of the world,
right?
Well, then at the end of, or toward the end of Fellowship, then when they're in the boats and they come across those three or those those statues, those really tall statues. Where is that? Is that?
That's on the Anduin. It's north of Gondor, right?
Okay.
So it's not really that was neither Arnor or Gondor's, but I think it was. I think that was meant to be like a kind of a guard upon. I'm not sure who those were intended for, if anything, other than just to signal maybe you're passing into what was once the realm of Gondor.
Okay.
Right.
Got it.
I think that's the case.
Okay.
If I am sort of speculating, but if anybody knows anything differently, let us know. Okay, so.
So what was it that caused the Ring-Wraiths to kind of start invading Gondor? Was it just the power of Sauron coming back? And because Gondor was so close, is that why they...
As far as we know, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just them starting to...
gain power.
Gain power in return, yeah.
And just coming to the first kingdom they came to, or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so... we also shift and we look a little bit at what's going on with the elves in this time, right? So Gil-galad was, of course, the High King of the Noldor, right? In the Second Age,
right?
And he died with the last alliance of men and elves. He was killed by Sauron.
Yes.
And so Elrond was the other great elf lord of that time, and he goes and he abides in Imladris, Rivendell.
Right.
And gathered there many elves and other folk of wisdom and power from among all the kindreds of Middle-earth. And he preserved through many lives of men the memory of all that had been fair. So Rivendell becomes kind of this place of preservation.
Like a haven.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
A refuge for the weary and the oppressed, and a treasury of good counsel and wise lore. In that house were harbored the heirs of Isildur in childhood and old age because of the kinship of their blood with Elrond himself. Right? So they're all sons. So all the Númenóreans, the Isildur is descended from Elros, right? Who was the brother of Elrond, right? Remember, they're both half elven. For their father was Arundel, the man,
right?
The Edain, and then their mother was. Let me find it real quick. Their mother was Elwing, and who was an elf. Actually, who was a. Who was descended from Beren and Luthien back a couple of generations.
Right. So
she actually was had some man. She was part elf and part man herself.
So Elrond is basically Isildur's uncle.
Great uncle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're directly connected.
Okay.
At some point far back. It's weird because of course Elrond has been alive for 3,000 years at this point.
Right.
Elros lived for about 300, 400 years and then died, right? So because he chose to be a man, he chose to be mortal.
Right. Okay.
Whereas Elrond chose to be immortal. He chose the elvish side
from Elros.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay, so I lost my place.
So that's where the heirs of Isildur have been living in Rivendell with Elrond.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so there's a bit in here about the creation of the rings. We've talked a good bit about that already, so I don't want to spend too much time on that, but just a quick refresher. We have 3 elven rings, we have the 7 dwarvish rings, and the 9 rings that belong to men. Right. And they were all created in the Second Age. And so at this point, in the Third Age, they are distributed among Elrond, Galadriel, and Círdan.
Right. The 3 elvish rings.
Right.
Yeah.
And other than Imladris, there's also Lothlorien, and those are kind of the 2 domains of bliss, of elvish sort of bliss and beauty in that time. All right.
Yep.
So go ahead.
Well, it says that the red ring. So there's 3, right? The red ring being one of them. And it says that that one remained hidden.
Right.
The ring of sapphire was with Elrond. The ring of adamant, which I looked that up last week, but I can't remember what it is. It's like a I was gonna say, I feel like it's kind of like it's a reddish, maybe.
A legendary rock or mineral to which many often contradictory properties were attributed, formerly associated with diamond or lodestone.
Oh, so it's kind of like a clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so that one, the ring of adamant, is with Lady Galadriel. But it says that the red ring, the ring of fire, remained hidden. And none save Elrond and Galadriel and Círdan knew to whom it had been committed.
Yeah.
So we don't technically know where that third one is.
Well, no, we know from other readings that it was Gandalf.
I know, it was Gandalf. Yeah. I know, but we don't find that out until later.
We don't find that out in this story, yeah.
Well, we find it out later.
Yeah.
At the end of this story,
right.
But anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. A bit of intrigue.
Yeah. Right on. All right.
Which is interesting, though, because he's not an elf.
Who, Gandalf isn't?
Yeah. But Círdan gave it to him, I know.
Yeah. I think Círdan was just like, look, dude, I mean, I'm just hanging out on the beach, so I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to really go, fight Sauron or anything like that.
I'm not going to make use of this.
I feel kind of bad holding on to this thing, so why don't you take it and see if you can do some good with it?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's like, this power's wasted on me.
Yeah, it's like, dude, I'm just totally, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I like hanging out at the sea,
Drinking my Coronas.
That's right.
Just, watching the waves rolling.
That's right, living the dream. Why don't you take this red ring and, see if you can...
Make something happen.
See if you can do something to get Sauron with it.
Yeah.
Just gotta be honest, man. Just being honest.
Hey, at least he had the, at least he didn't let his pride get in the way. Like, no, it's mine. I don't care if I'm not going to use it for anything good.
Yeah, good on him.
It's beautiful, and I want it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so it says, but the dominion of men was preparing, and all things were changing until at last the Dark Lord arose in Mirkwood again. So that's a key theme that we have to understand that goes on in the Third Age. The elves of Middle-earth have been in decline ever since the First Age, ever since the end of the First Age.
Yeah.
Okay, their power is kind of slowly, especially the Eldar, right? Those who, the Calaquendi, right? Those who actually went to, and those descended from the elves that actually went to Valinor,
right?
That followed the summons of the Valar,
right?
And so the elves are declining, and at the time of men is coming, and this time has been coming for a while, right? The goal. It would seem that the goal of Iluvatar has always been that elves are the first, the first comers, and they sort of kind of set the stage. But then men, the story is really about men. And again, if you kind of piece this together with Tolkien's other writings, his intent that this is a mythical telling of a age of this world in the past, right? This is a myth that Tolkien created for this world that we live in.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And so you can kind of count forward our ages, but and kind of Tolkien's scheme that he created here. this is when the dominion of men, the time of men, is really starting. When they're going to take over, and the elves are going to be really forgotten. For all intents and purposes.
Yes.
So the Dark Lord arises in Mirkwood. Okay, he arises not in Mordor, but north in what was once known as Greenwood the Great. And Mirkwood is, of course, where much of the Hobbit takes place, right? So it's that big forest to the east of the Misty Mountains, and to the north of Mordor, well north of Mordor. And Sauron creates for himself there a tower known as Dol Guldur, and that's where he seeks to rule from. And for a long time, they don't really know it's him. They just think it's this some powerful sorcerer.
But they know it's not good.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
They know it's dark. And
it's about this time that the Istari, the wizards who we did a previous episode on them,
right,
come into Middle Earth. And the chief ones that we're interested in there are Gandalf and Saruman, who are, of course, known as Mithrandir, Gandalf, and Coronir by the elves.
Right.
Right.
There's also Radagast, right?
There is Radagast, but he's
a bit of a minor player.
He is. He just all through and through a bit of a minor player.
Mm-hmm.
At first, of course, Coronir seems like he's the one that's in charge and he knows the most and, he's the most respectable.
Right.
But it says, ever most vigilant was Mithrandir, and he it was that most doubted the darkness in Mirkwood. For though many deemed that it was wrought by the Ring-Wraiths, he feared that it was indeed the first shadow of Sauron returning. And he went to Dol Guldur, and the sorcerer fled from him. And there was a watchful peace for a long while. But at length the shadow returned, and its power increased, and in that time was first made the Council of the Wise that is called the White Council. And therein were Elrond and Galadriel and Círdan, and other lords of the Eldar, and with them were Mithrandir and Coronir. And Coronir, that was Saruman the White, was chosen to be their chief, for he had most studied the devices of Sauron of old. Galadriel indeed had wished that Mithrandir should be the head of the council, and Saruman begrudged them that, for his pride and desire of mastery was grown great. But Mithrandir refused the office, since he would have no ties and no allegiance, save to those who sent him, and he would abide in no place nor be subject to any summons. But Saruman now began to study the lore of the Rings of Power, their making and their history. So it's interesting that there's this little power struggle where the Galadriel and Elrond see something in Mithrandir and they think this guy should be in charge of the White Council, and Saruman, of course, gets hurt about that, right? Gets hurt, pride hurt.
Yeah.
About that, and that starts to that sets him off on a bad path. So the council kind of continues in conversation for a while about what's the best way of addressing this problem of Sauron. And what it says about Saruman is that too long he had studied the ways of Sauron and hoped to defeat him, and now he envied him as a rival rather than hated his works. And he deemed that the ring, which was Sauron's, would seek for its master as he became manifest once more. For if he were driven out again, then it would lie hid. Therefore he was willing to play with peril and let Sauron be for a time, hoping by his craft to forestall both his friends and the enemy when the ring should appear. So Saruman, unlike in the movie, in Jackson's movie, Saruman never looks to Sauron as his master. Saruman looks to Sauron as a rival, which makes sense because they're both Maiar, right? They're both Maya, who were present, who have existed since the beginning, right?
Right.
So they're rivals. Saruman views Sauron as a rival and not as like somebody he's going to kind of fall under and let be his lord. But it's interesting that Saruman is corrupted in this way because he's studied his works for so long, and after he studied them for long enough, he's like, I'm smart enough, I could do this too. Mm-hmm. I could do what he's trying to do. Mm-hmm. And so he kind of, instead of following allowing the White Council to do what they had hoped to do, which was to kind of take care of Sauron before he became a problem again, he kind of becomes a speed bump in their way, tries to slow them down a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's hoping that and it says he was willing to play with peril and let Sauron be for a time, hoping by his craft to forestall both his friends and the enemy when the ring should appear. So Saruman, as we kind of gather from the Lord of the Rings, is just trying to slow things down so that, and he doesn't want Sauron to find the ring. He'd prefer to find the ring, but he doesn't want Sauron to find it, but he's hoping that he can set himself up and gain enough power in that time that he could go against Sauron and be, actually be rival with him.
Right.
So
he's trying to hold off because at their first meeting of the White Council, I mean, Mithrandir or Gandalf and Elrond, they're all like, okay, this is trouble, we need to do something about this. And he's like, no, I don't think, Saruman's like, no, it's fine. Let's just wait and watch and see what happens, right? And then some time passes, and then he's finally like, okay, now we can. So did he just want that extra time? Like, was he just trying to stave them off so that he would have time to build up his own army? Is that what he was doing?
Yeah, and I think he was hoping to ultimately find the ring.
Oh, okay.
And it says he was hoping by his craft to forestall both his friends and the enemy when the ring should appear.
Okay.
So yeah, he's not a friend of the White Council. He's not a friend of Sauron, but he's not letting the White Council know that he's not their friend anymore yet. Right. And again, it's so that
he's a double agent at this point.
Yeah. Well, and he's kind of a double agent for himself. He's not really a double agent. He's becoming his own player. Right.
Right. Yeah. I guess that's true.
Yeah. So all this is going on, and it's at this time that Saruman has set a watch upon the Gladden Fields, but soon discovered that the servants of Dol Guldur were searching all the ways of the river in that region. And so
Sauron is looking for the ring as well.
Yeah, well, they're all looking for the ring, and Saruman has learned enough about the history of the ring to where he's got people trying to look for it as well.
Okay.
Hold on just a second. All right. But we know a lot of that, part of the story. So eventually Coronir, Saruman kind of consents to going against Sauron and at Dol Guldur and, trying to actively take him on. Right. But by then it's really too late. Yeah. And eventually Sauron returns to Mordor and sets himself up, and kind of openly declares himself. And says, but their stroke was too late, for the Dark Lord had foreseen it, and he had long prepared all his movements. And the Uleri, his 9 servants, had gone before him to make ready for his coming. Therefore his flight was but a feint, and he soon returned, and ere the wise could prevent him, he re-entered his kingdom in Mordor, and reared once again the dark towers of Barad-dûr. And in that year the White Council met for the last time, and Coronir withdrew to Isengard, and took counsel with none save himself. And that kind of, so we get to the point in the story, really where the Lord of the Rings begins. Mithrandir, Gandalf, learns of the ring because of his fortune and vigilance, ere Sauron has news of it.
So he figures out that Bilbo has it before anybody else does.
Eventually. And then we have this bit about, what is one of the key themes that Tolkien called out in the Waldman letter at the very beginning of the Silmarillion, and one of the intro to the Silmarillion, really. Remember, he talks about this great quote, which I love. He says, "Here we meet, among other things, the first example of the motive to become dominant in hobbits, that the great policies of world history, the wheels of the world, are often turned not by the lords and governors, even gods, but by the seemingly unknown and weak, owing to the secret life in creation, and the part unknowable to all wisdom but one, that resides in the intrusions of the children of God into the drama." All right, so the wheels of the world are often turned not by lords and governors, but by the seemingly unknown and weak. And so that's the real story. That's where the hobbits come in. In that last battle were Mithrandir and the sons of Elrond and the king of Rohan and lords of Gondor and the heir of Isildur with the Dunedain of the north. There at the last they looked upon death and defeat, and all their valor was in vain, for Sauron was too strong. Yet in that hour was put to the proof that which Mithrandir had spoken, and help came from the hands of the weak when the wise faltered. For as many songs have since sung, it was the Perionoth, the little people, dwellers in hillsides and meadows, that brought them deliverance. For Frodo the halfling, it is said, at the bidding of Mithrandir, took on himself the burden, and alone with his servant, he passed through peril and darkness, and came at last, in Sauron's despite, even to Mount Doom, and there into the fire where it was wrought, he cast the great ring of power, and so at last it was unmade, and its evil consumed.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming that if you're listening to this, that you
probably already read.
Yeah.
The Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
But if you didn't, sorry. And so that's the end of Sauron. But I have to comment here. One thing that always bugs me about reading that is how there's no mention of Sam. You know,
it's like his servant.
Well, yeah, but it's like nameless servant. Frodo and his nameless servant. You know.
It doesn't name Aragorn either. It just says the heir of Isildur.
Yeah, but that's a little more specific title, right?
Yeah, I guess
Frodo
so.
and his measly little servant, who could have been anybody, you know.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I hadn't thought
of that. It's just, it's like, well, I mean, because when you think, the true story, of course, is that Frodo doesn't actually do it, right?
Right.
Frodo is unable to at the last minute.
Right.
And not that Sam does it either, but if Sam had not been there with him,
it wouldn't have happened.
It wouldn't have happened in the first place.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, Sam has a huge part to play, which of course we'll see. Not to say that Frodo doesn't deserve a lot of credit. I'm not saying that at all. But
sure.
Sam deserves his fair share of the credit too.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But true to Sam would probably not even want the credit. He would probably be like,
I'm just a servant.
That. I'm good with being Frodo's servant.
Yeah, he totally would.
Yeah.
He's so selfless and just a servant of all. I think he would be honored, honestly, by the title of servant.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's especially a servant of Frodo. Like he just, he's like Frodo. He's there to serve Frodo, and that's what he's going to do.
Yep.
I love that when you if you consider the Silmarillion as a whole, that's the final word. Is that look, this whole thing has been leading up to the hobbits, and it's like they're almost like just the only time the hobbits are actually mentioned is like the last 2 pages of this, right? But this whole story has been leading up to that very thing.
Yep.
And it's again that theme that it's not the lords and governors, but it's the little people that turn the wheels of the world.
The halflings.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. And that's a very spiritual lesson,
Totally.
like it's not, you don't need to set your eyes upon like doing these great, incredible things. Like you just set your eyes. In fact, it's too easy to fail morally when you do, like to just fall when you try to accomplish great things.
Yeah, when you set yourself
just like focus on the thing that's right in front of you.
Yeah.
Focus on the task that comes to you, and it may be a great task that comes to you,
but it may not
be a small task.
Yes,
but you still do your small tasks.
Right. How appropriate that we're talking about this on the feast of Saint Therese of Lisieux.
Oh, there you go. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, the little flower.
The little flower who's little way.
Yeah, little Catholic. For those of you who aren't Catholic or don't know who Saint Therese of Lisieux is, she was like a French. I hadn't even thought of that. That this was totally not planned. That she was like a French nun in the late 19th century. Yeah.
And Carmelite nun. Yeah, she was born in the late. Yeah, she was born in 1873. So yeah, she lived in the late 1800s.
Yeah, and died 23, 24. Yeah. And she's known as the little flower because, and actually I think Mother Teresa, she was one of the Mother Teresa's inspiration for the name that she took. I think she was.
Yes, I think she was.
Because her little way was just all about the doing the act of love, like always, just every moment doing the act of love. That's
doing
in front
little
of you.
Things with great love. Doing
exactly.
Small things with great love. Yeah,
right.
That was also a motto of Mother Teresa as well, Saint Mother Teresa. And yes, it's really interesting because Saint Therese of Lisieux, she always wanted to be a great missionary. Like she always wanted to go and do all these, great overseas bringing people to Christ, but she was too sickly. And she never left the walls of her convent, and yet she's still the patroness of missions. Which is
right. Yeah.
Really, really cool.
Yeah.
Because of her little way, she brought so many people to Christ just through her testament to that little way, doing little things with great love, doing everything you do with great love.
Yeah.
And so and she's a doctor of the church.
Yeah.
Which is just amazing to me because you think of her, she was only 24 when she died.
Yeah, it's not like she wrote like all these huge books and everything. I mean, she did write some things.
Yeah, she wrote The Story of the Soul and some other things, and but it's the world would look at her and say, oh, she's so she's just a kid and she's so insignificant, and she never left her little Carmelite convent in France, but she did so much good just by living that life of of a servant, really, and of teaching others to do the same. So
yeah, beautiful connection there. I hadn't even thought of that.
Well, it just came to me while we were talking about it. I hadn't really thought ahead of it either.
Yeah,
so, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, good stuff. So at the end of the day, this whole story, starting from page 1 of the Silmarillion all the way till now, has been about the triumph of, like, it's at the heart of it all for Tolkien is that it's not the great powers.
Right.
And Tolkien was a fan. I mean, it's obvious from this story that Tolkien was a fan of the great powers.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And the idea of there being great powers, but at the same time, he kind of recognized that the way that the story of history goes is that it's not always about the great powers, but oftentimes it's about the little guy.
It's about the little guy. Yep. In fact, a verse that I read today was, basically, I forget what part of the New Testament it's from. It's basically God sent the wise to confound the weak and the weak to confound the wise.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So.
Another striking example.
Yep, absolutely.
So last word is that at the end of the Third Age, the remainder of the Noldor depart from the Grey Havens, and they go to the Blessed Realm, which of course is no longer part of the like Arda itself. It's been sort of removed into the sky away from Arda, and that's why it says. In that time, the last of the Noldor set sail from the havens and left Middle-earth forever. And latest of all the keepers of the Three Rings rode to the sea, and Master Elrond took there the ship that Círdan had made ready. In the twilight of autumn it sailed out of Mithlond, until the seas of the bent world fell away beneath it, and the winds of the round sky troubled it no more, and borne upon the high airs above the mists of the world, it passed into the ancient west, and an end was come for the Eldar of story and of song. Kind of a cool mental image to think about, like it passes a certain point and then it no longer is like on the water. It just kind of continues on that same trajectory instead of following the curve of the globe. It kind of just continues on that trajectory into the air,
Yeah.
And to the Blessed Realm.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, nifty.
Very, very cool.
So there you go.
All right, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Woohoo!
All right. Let's see. Haiku time. All right, we gotta try singing these words.
All right, we're gonna start right when it starts.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it.
Okay.
Let's pull this over here.
Suspense is killing me.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables for haiku. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables for haiku. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables for haiku. Nice, works pretty well.
That worked, yeah. Yeah, not bad.
Awesome.
Well done. Thanks, Greg.
We got our words unless somebody else comes up with something better. Awesome.
The gauntlet has been thrown.
That's right.
Has been cast.
You think you can think of something better? Yeah, I think I can think of something better. You know that movie?
Coming to America?
No.
Oh. No.
Roxanne.
I should have known it was a Steve Martin movie. Silly me.
It's that scene where he's throwing darts and somebody calls him Big Nose. He's like, "Hey, where are you going, Big Nose?" he's like, I give you this, and all you can think of is Big Nose. Really? And the guy's like, "What? You think you can think of something better?" He goes, "Yeah, I think I can think of something better." And he comes up with like 20 better put downs for himself than that. It's awesome. It's a great scene. Man, that's a great scene. It's a great movie. All right.
Well, thanks for enlightening all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been a long time since I saw it. All right. So I did one last week. You didn't. So you're doing one this week. And we only have one from you, and we have one from Josh. So another one from Josh. So
okay.
You want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first.
All right.
All right. Here's my haiku. First, second, now the third age arrives, where the weak will show up the wise.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thanks.
Good job.
Thanks, you.
Good job.
I was a little bit proud of that one.
Yeah. Want to read it again?
Do you want me to?
Yes.
Okay, I'll read it again. First, second, now the third age arrives, where the weak will show up the wise.
Nice.
Yep.
I love it.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, yo. It tied in nicely to our last little
It did.
part of our combo there.
No Steph.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Josh, we got here. All right, Josh sent me one, and I think I have it right. It's a little bit avant-garde. So
which we've come to expect from Josh.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go. I'm gonna try and do it my best, Josh. Age, Istari come, Palantiri covertly used, rings dwindle, third. Yeah.
Oh, he separated third and age.
Yeah. And he put parentheses around it, which I don't know why the parentheses are there, but so I like it.
I like it a lot.
And I hope I got it right. I hope I didn't make an error there, but I don't know, Josh, you want to send us a little...
How could you have done that wrong?
Well, just maybe it was supposed to be third age, Istari come, Palantiri covertly used, rings dwindle, and somehow it got transposed. But I think I got it exactly how he wanted it. So.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how he intended.
Okay.
But Josh, if you would like to clarify, we'd appreciate it.
Well, no, and if there's a kind of I'm just interested in the reason he did it that way. You know what I'm saying?
With the parentheses?
With the parentheses and with the age, Istari come, Palantiri covertly used, rings dwindle.
It's probably a really cool, ancient form of haiku writing that we just don't know about.
Well, probably, but Josh is a lot smarter than both of us, so
I know.
we need him to
enlighten us. Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I just asked him to do.
Yeah.
I think you did it right. I think what we would both like to know is kind of the thought process and kind of his inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, we're on the same page.
Okay, cool. It's
all
good
right.
though. I think.
Yeah, it is. It's good. Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thank you, Josh.
All right. Okay, so here's the deal. We have next week we're gonna do a special. We got a little special episode going on, and I won't give too much. I'm not gonna give any detail on that one just yet. And then after that, we're gonna continue with Lord of the Rings, Book 3, Chapter 1. So the first chapter in the Two Towers.
Okay.
And if you want to submit, we got to record it a little early though. So if you want to submit haiku for that, you need to have them in by the 6th of October, which is Wednesday or Thursday.
The 6th.
Wednesday. Maybe I can see.
I think it's Thursday. The 6th is Thursday.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to submit haiku for that, please have it in as soon as possible, and especially no later than Thursday.
Okay. And
you know what? I'll even say, to be on the safe side, try to get it in by 10:05. Just in case. If it's in on 10:06, I can't guarantee it'll be in. If it's in on Wednesday, then I can guarantee it'll be in.
Right on.
So.
Okay.
All right. I guess that's all I got.
Yeah. That's all I got too.
All right. Well, we're officially all done with the Silmarillion, and still we do our epic appendices index episode.
Today we will talk about the A's.
That's right. Today we will pronounce words from the appendix of the Silmarillion and sound like complete dorks.
Yeah.
Because we're going to get them all wrong.
Yeah.
Adan. Plural, Adan. You know, Greta, I think this is a really interesting word.
Yeah?
We'll do a little sneak preview of this episode for you. So, Aelin. Island. What do you think that means, Greta?
Aelin? Island? I think it's island, maybe? Does it mean island?
You'd think that, wouldn't you?
I would think
but
that.
You'd be wrong.
Okay.
It's lake or pool.
Oh, I wasn't far off.
What about Oglor?
Oglor?
Or Oglar?
Oglar.
Mm-hmm.
I would say water. No?
Glory or brilliance.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's surprising.
Ina? Give it a good guess.
Oh, like Ina Garten. She's like one of my favorite Food Network chefs. Oh.
Nothing to do.
Oh.
Nothing to do with this.
Ina?
Yeah.
Ina.
As in,
Ina, I don't want to do this anymore.
Okay. Fine. It actually means holy, which, I know are the holy ones.
Oh.
Yeah. All right, so that's a little sneak preview of our, 26 or 27 part walkthrough of the appendices that I'm sure we'll do in the future.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
All right. Great episode, Greta.
That was wonderful.
All right.
Thank you for inviting me along.
Party on.
Party on.
All right. Party on, everybody.
Yeah, party on, everybody.
I'll catch you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Please remember to check out truemyths.org for show notes and plenty of other Tolkien goodness. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, would you please leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes? It's a great way to support the show and takes less than a minute. On our next episode, we'll provide a brief overview of the Silmarillion in its entirety. Our discussion of the Lord of the Rings will resume on 10:15. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, the road goes ever on.